Dear students, my name is Naushi Nizami, and in today's session I am going to discuss with you a new topic of chapter 2, which is interest rate and the theory of time preference. So what is interest rate? What do you know? How do you define interest rate? So interest rate is the rate at which interest is paid by borrowers or debtors for the use of money that they borrow from lenders or creditors. It's a percentage of principal paid a certain number of times per period for all periods during the total term of the loan or credit. You know that interest rate is expressed in percentage on an annual basis. So basically, if I have to summarize this in simple words, interest rate is something which you give over and above your lump sum amount that you have borrowed. So supposingly you have borrowed a loan of 5 lakh rupees. So although you have to return those 5 lakh rupees to the bank or financial institution, but over and above you also are charged an interest rate. So supposingly the interest rate is 7%, then you have to pay over and above 5 lakh rupees even an amount equivalent to 7% interest rate. So this is also charged by the financial institutions as well, in case they are lending to borrowers like institutions or you can say companies, firms, and it's also charged by banks to the households or individual borrowers. Interest rate is also paid on the deposits or savings that we do with the banks and financial institutions. What is the significance and why this concept of interest rate has come up? So a very important significance is that interest rate is a very widely used tool of monetary policy, and many times it is used during times of inflation or unemployment. Interest rates generally rise during inflation or when there is greater demand for credit or when there are tight monetary conditions or due to high reserve requirements for banks. So these can be the four reasons or circumstances when banks will raise interest rates. Now let me discuss them one by one. So why the interest rates rise during inflation? So generally it is said that inflation occurs in an economy when the money supply in circulation is in excess. So people are basically spending and demanding a lot of goods and services, and that is raising the price level also. However, if the central bank wants to control this money supply, it has this very nice tool of interest rate which it can use to change the behavior of people. So when interest rates are raised on savings, supposingly we do it one by one. So if interest rates are high on savings, households would be more motivated to save rather than spend. So their savings in the banks will increase. That will automatically reduce their spending on goods and services and thereby their demand for goods and services. If interest rates on loans increase, it will become more expensive to borrow money from banks or financial institutions. So households or business community will either postpone their decision to borrow or they will just decide not to borrow. So that means that the money that was going to come in their hands as loan would reduce, or you can say would not come, and so that money will not be spent also. So that's how whether the interest rates are rising on loans or they're rising on savings, in both the ways they can curtail the demand for goods and services by demotivating households or business community. Let's come to the second circumstance. So when there is greater demand for credit, at that time also interest rates rise. Now here greater demand for credit basically means greater demand for loans. So if households are majority of the households or people in a country are demanding loans, and if the supply of loans is stable, that is not rising in an equivalent proportion, then whenever demand is greater than supply in any market, the price rises, and the price of loans is interest rate. So if demand for loans is rising and the supply of loans remains the same, interest rate will rise. That's why, as per the second reason, interest rates will rise if there is greater demand for credit. Third, interest rates will rise if there are tight monetary conditions. So in case of tight monetary conditions, basically imply the meaning of tight monetary condition is when money supply in circulation is less. That means there's shortage of liquidity, you can say, or shortage of cash in circulation. So when not enough cash, not enough liquid money is there in the system, obviously the interest rate will rise. The fourth reason is due to high reserve requirements for banks. Now high reserve requirements basically mean high CRR or high SLR. So if the cash reserve ratio is being increased by the central bank, or if the statutory liquidity ratio is being increased, or both CRR and SLR are being increased, banks will have to keep more money. They will have to maintain or keep more money aside as CRR and SLR. So less would remain with them for lending purposes. Now if banks will have less money for lending purposes while the demand for those loans remains the same, that means again the interest rate will rise. So whenever CRR increases or SLR increases, you will find that it gets passed on to the general public through higher interest rates. And all these tools, any of these tools can be used to control inflation. So in order to control inflation, central bank can increase CRR and SLR, which generally passes on to the population in the form of high interest rate. Now how is unemployment controlled, or how unemployment can be dealt with? So in order to create employment opportunities, central bank is required to prioritize lending in such key sectors which are labor intensive, which generate employment. So what it can do is it can reduce interest rates, or it can subsidize interest rates to such priority sectors, and by doing so it will provide them loans at concessional rates. So when that loan amount reaches those key sectors, they can invest it in their business, and when they invest it in their business and expand output, they will require more people, so they will generate employment. So by providing loans at concessional rates or subsidized rates, the banks can control unemployment also. What are the implications? So when high interest rates are there in an economy, first of all, it tends to dampen business activity. Now, in order to understand this, you need to think about the lending rate on basically productive loans, when loans are taken by business houses. So if interest rate on such business loans are rising, it implies that they will postpone their business plan. So if some business house was planning to expand their business, so supposingly there was some company like Tata Motors, they were planning to set up a plant. They were planning to set up a plant in, say, Maharashtra. Then if the interest rates are rising, it means that it will become very costlier for them to repay this business loan, and so they may postpone their decision to expand their business. This would tend to dampen business activity simultaneously for all the firms who were planning to borrow money from the bank. Second is that it tends to dampen stock market, as investors can get good returns from bank deposits. So if the interest rates in banks are rising, that is more preferred by households, because these interest rates guarantee stable returns. Unlike stock market, where the value of the share may dwindle, it may be volatile, it may sometimes go up, sometimes go down depending upon the market conditions. So households tend to prefer stable returns from bank deposits, and so they may pull out their savings from stock market, and they may invest it in the bank schemes. So these are the two implications of high interest rates on an economy. Now what is gross or nominal interest rate? So I've written both the terms together because they mean the same. So nominal interest rate is exactly the interest rate which we all see around us. So if our banks are giving us savings interest rate 3.5% or 4%, that is nominal interest rate. If if you have borrowed a loan and you are being charged 8.25% on that loan, then that is nominal interest rate. So nominal or gross interest rate is the annual rate of interest which has to be paid on an investment security or deposit account before taxes or other charges are deducted. So generally it's the rate quoted everywhere. It's quoted when you enter a banking premise and you see a board on which the current rates applicable on different banking schemes are written. So that is the nominal interest rate. It's quoted in loan and deposit agreements. For example, if you are saving rupees 3000 and the rate of interest is 2%, then this 2% is the nominal interest rate. Now let's just do a quick exercise. So what is the interest amount if 2% is the rate of interest on savings of rupees 3000? You can quickly find that out. So what you need to do? You need to, in simple words, you need to just multiply 0.02 with 3000. Now supposingly you are also asked to find out the net interest amount remaining and taxes if interest amount is taxed 35%. So now you need to find out 35% of the answer that you have in part A. So you can quickly do this exercise. So if the answer in your part A was rupees 60, you need to now multiply 60 rupees with 0.35. And whatever answer comes, that is your answer for interest amount. So around 21 rupees, and the remaining is for, yes, so 21 rupees is basically your tax amount and the remaining is the interest amount which is with you. So this kind of quick exercise you all can do. I'll be sharing some more numericals later for your practice, and you can just work out that how nominal interest rate is calculated on a given amount. Now let's come to real interest rate. Real interest rate is the rate of interest an investor expects to receive after allowing for inflation. So now this real interest rate is not mentioned publicly anywhere. This is just for your own knowledge. It tells you the worthiness of the nominal interest income that you are receiving. So if in the previous example 2% was the interest rate on 3000 rupees, and say it was giving you an income of 60 rupees. So 60 rupees was nominal interest income. But what is the worthiness of that 60 rupees? How much can you buy from that 60 rupees? So what is the value of money? What is the value of that 60 rupees? That is known if you know the real interest rate. So real interest rate is something which we all can mentally calculate by checking what is the ongoing inflation rate. As per a very popular economist, Irving Fisher, you can calculate real interest rate if you take a difference between nominal interest rate and inflation rate. So you need to know both the percentage and you can find out the worthiness of your interest income. It depicts the real value of savings or growth rate of purchasing power. Example can be if nominal interest rate is 8% and the rate of inflation is 6%, what would be the real interest rate? So 8% minus 6%, that gives you 2%. So the worthiness of your nominal income is only 2%. Although someone may be getting interest amount worth 8% in their deposit account, but the worthiness of that 8% amount is only 2%. So supposingly you have deposited 100 rupees in a bank and you are being credited 8% extra as interest income. So how much would be your total money now? 108 rupees. Now 108 rupees is as per the nominal interest rate. But what is the worthiness of that extra 8 rupees? You can get to know by taking the difference of this. So our answer was 2%. So actually the worthiness of that 8 rupees is only 2 rupees given the situation of inflation. That means price of goods and services have increased, and so the value of money has got reduced. Now sometimes the answer can be negative also. What is the implication of negative real interest rate? So the implication is that if your real interest rate answer is turning out to be negative. So if we just reverse these figures, supposingly the nominal interest rate is 6% and rate of inflation is 8%. So 6 minus 8% gives minus 2%. So how do you analyze minus 2%? Basically it implies that you can't expect anything if you are depositing your money in the bank that it will give you any extra income, rather than the value of money is going down. The only motivation left for you to keep your money remaining in the bank is that it's more secure to keep it at bank than at home. Otherwise it's not generating any extra income. So this is how you can analyze the real interest rate. You can analyze the value of your money using the concept of real interest rate. So nominal and real interest rates both are very useful in real life. Let's move to the theory of time preference. Time preference theory basically explains that why this concept of interest rate has come into the picture. So what is the relevance of this term? So time preference theory basically says that it shows the inclination of a consumer towards current consumption over future consumption. So you know that in general human beings are like that we try to satisfy our current wants and we are not so patient to wait for a future consumption. So if you are getting some offer currently, you would be tempted to take that offer rather than wait for future and wait if some better offer comes up. So if the future income is expected to be higher than the consumer's current income, he or she will have a high rate of time preference. So if your future income is expected to be higher, okay, so and what you're getting in your hands is less than what is expected in the future, you will have a high rate of time preference. So the interest rate has to be high enough to induce savings instead of spending. Because if a person knows that supposingly you're earning 10,000 rupees per month right now, and in your future it is estimated that your income will rise to 25,000, we may have this complacent behavior that let's spend all the money because our income is going to be high in future. So we may end up spending entire 10,000 rupees, imagining that when 25,000 would be the income, we will save at that time. So in order to restrain this behavior, in order to restrain the behavior of spending what is there in your hands currently, a high rate of interest is required. So this particular phrase that you have a high rate of time preference basically implies that you need high rate of interest rate in order to postpone your spending behavior and in order to induce savings currently. So that is the meaning of this line. Now the consumer will limit his or her savings to the amount at which the rate of time preference equals the rate of interest. So as I said, if the rate of time preference is high, it implies that one needs to give that individual high rate of interest to induce him to save. So a consumer will limit his or her savings to the amount at which rate of time preference is equal to the rate of interest. And interest rate is also known as discount rate. So interest rate basically is nothing but rate of time preference. And interest rate is needed in order to induce people to postpone their current expenditure and in order to induce people to save in the present times rather than just plan savings in future. That's why this concept is very, very relevant. Now from where has this time preference theory of interest come? So it has come from the Agio theory of interest, which was founded by an Austrian economist, Baum-Bawerk, who said that interest is an agio. Agio means reward or premium for time preference. So people prefer present income, present consumption, and present satisfaction of wants, which means that people are impatient to spend. This is so true. In general, if you observe, this is actually the reality. So psychologically, we all are like that. Consumers are like that, that they would prefer present income, present consumption, present wants. We are tempted to satisfy our thirst. We are tempted to buy something if we see something which we love, rather than postponing that decision to buy. If you visit a shopping mall and you come across some nice chocolate, or you come across some nice perfume, we are tempted to buy it at the same time. It's difficult for people to uh, plan and control their desires, and that is quite natural. So this statement is something which actually explains the common behavior, but then exemptions also remain. So we are not generalizing it to all the people, but yeah, most of the people uh, are like that. So many a times when you enter a shopping store, a supermarket or a retail store, if you are entering, say, with a list of 5 items, not always we return out of that store with 5 items. So many a times we may get those 5 items and we may get something extra also. So this is something very natural. Now, in order to induce people to postpone their consumption, they have to be compensated by paying interest. So you actually have to create some incentive to induce people to postpone their consumption. Otherwise, the tendency is people are likely to spend it in present time only. So Irving Fisher said that the rate of time preference measures the rate of interest, and the higher the time preference, the higher the impatience to spend, or vice versa, you can say. So people who have high impatience to spend have to be given high rate of interest. To summarize, according to Fisher, people with low level of income who are uncertain about their future and spendthrifts, they will be incentivized by high rate of interest, whereas their opposites by even low amount of interest rate. So let's analyze it one by one. So people who have low level of income. So you can imagine people who are poor, or people who are below poverty line, or with low levels of income. Because their income levels are very low, they may not be able to save. They don't have an incentive to save, because most of the time they are trying to satisfy their immediate needs and wants. So if you want to induce such people to start saving, even uh, adjust their income in such a way that they're able to even save 5 rupees per day, you have to give them high incentive. So high incentive basically means that you have to offer them more rates of interest, high rates of interest, so that they may think that saving even 5 rupees is, say, going to double it up. So you have to create incentives in such a manner that people save. Otherwise, they will spend entirely their income. Similarly, people who are uncertain about their future, they also have to be given high rate of interest. So people who are not so optimistic about the future, they may also end up spending their entire money in the present times, because they don't know that what will be the scenario in future, whether they would be alive, whether the future they'll be able to use their money. So sometimes people are pessimistic and they're uncertain. So in order to induce and incentivize such people, again you have to create incentives which may include high rate of interest. And then there is another category which are spendthrifts. So people who are spendthrifts, they may also spend a lot of income on a regular basis. So many a times you might have seen some households, whenever the monthly income comes, within the first 10-15 days, you will find that they have spent 80 to 90% of their income. So how to induce savings among such people? For them also special incentives have to be created, which in which case one of that incentive can be high rate of interest. So these are some categories of people who have to be given a high rate of interest, and this is the theory of time preference. It's very important because it helps us to understand the behavior of households, and it also helps us to understand that why this term of interest rate came up, why this entire mechanism of banks and interest rate came up. And that is mainly to induce people to have a habit of saving and investing. And savings are actually very important. Savings not only are important for the individual who is depositing its money in the bank, it's also important for the banking system because they get money which they can use as loans for people who are needy. It can also be used in investments. So this entire mechanism of savings and investment, this entire chain of savings and investments can work only when households continue to save, households continue to deposit their money. And that is why also you can say that these entire schemes of digital India and I mean all these cashless economy, all these are working. They are trying to induce people to have more money in the banking system, less as cash at home. That is being discouraged. Keeping cash at home or keeping more cash with yourself is being discouraged, because keeping money with the banking system is very good for the economy, not just for the individual or household. So this is how this entire interest rate theory and the theory of time preference came up. I hope you could understand the significance of interest rate now after knowing that how this theory has tried to understand the household and consumer behavior. So friends, we will meet again with another session where we will discuss how we can calculate and work out numericals related to it, and we will also try to understand the future and present value of money. Till then, all of you take care and have a very good time. Thank you for your patient listening. Bye.